Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, shake and bake, Cal! Woo! Shake and bake!
Live from the basement of the YouTube headquarters, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and finally, it's a normal, straightforward, everyday, regular Friday episode of the Stacking Benjamin Show. What does that mean? Well, look, here's our recipe for some good old home-cooked finance chat. We start with a compelling topic like the one we've got today. Things we worry about as finance nerds and how to combat those fears. Cool topic, right? And then we add in some great contributors like the woman behind the Afford Anything podcast and YouTube page, Paula Pant. And also like this guy from the Best Interest podcast, Jesse Cramer. And how about our partner from over at Earn and Invest, Dr. Jordan Grumet, aka Doc G. Then I throw all that into a Ziploc bag and I shake it up real good. And what happens then? Shake and bake, baby! Shake and bake! Well, you know, I mean, that means they're going to share some wisdom and insights and stuff. But it sounds way cooler when you say shake and bake. But that's not all. On today's episode, they'll also kick off our year-long Stacking Benjamins Trivia Challenge. And now, a guy who I think of first when I think of challenged, it's Joe Saul-Sehy.
Wow. We're starting off the year right, Doug.
We're firing on all cylinders today, baby.
Shake and bake and challenge, the same intro. Welcome back to another normal episode of the Stacking Benjamin Show. First one of 2025. We've had so many special episodes in a row. Let's say hello to the team that joins us today. Let's start off with the woman from the Afford Anything podcast. Paula Pant is here in a nice bright green, like happy sweater.
Yes. Yeah. I love bringing bright, cheerful kind of springtime colors to the gloom of winter. I never understood, why is it that when the trees are bare and the skies are dark, when it's gloomy outside and it gets dark at 4 p.m., why does everybody wear dark colors? Why not snazz it up with some brightness?
Well, you see, Paula, for the answer to that, we're going to have to go all the way back to the Victorian times to discuss civic cleanliness and their inability to clean up horse poop.
Well, I was going to say, though, Paula, especially New Yorkers, I noticed I had a raincoat because it rained like hell when I was there in December with you and Jordan and OG. And so I had on this red raincoat. I felt I felt like I was way too colorful.
Right, exactly. And but to Doug's point, New Yorkers also kind of have a problem with cleaning up horse poop. So
maybe. Yes. Is that what the mayor's worried about these days?
Maybe they like it.
Rats. Rats is the bigger problem here. We have a rat czar. We have an official rat czar.
It's amazing. And the guy who's the rat czar of this podcast, I got no idea where that's headed. Doc G, Jordan Grumet's here. How are you, man? It was
going to be me.
I was about to say, I didn't know if you were going to zig or zag there. Yeah, were you going to Jesse?
Who gets to be the rat czar?
You keep on talking about this is our normal Friday episode, and I was like, there's nothing normal here. Nothing normal here at all. So.
There might not be. Well, how's the book tour going, my friend?
It is busy. If you've been seeing a lot of me lately, it's because guess what? I had a book come out. I've been trying to get out there and get the messages of the book across and just trying to celebrate. It's a big thing when you have a book drop.
And I love, by the way, all the positive reviews I'm seeing, like not even positive, glowing reviews I'm seeing of it. Of course, well-deserved. I was meeting one-on-one with a stacker named Hannah today. Hey, Hannah. And I told Hannah, I go, I got this book I think you'd really like. She goes, Doc G's book, The Purpose Code? I'm like, yes, exactly. She goes, I'm reading it right now. It's so good. So good.
One of the funny things is when people are talking to you about the book and they start using your terminology. So it's pretty cool.
That is good. Like Little P?
Yep, exactly.
Yes. Speaking of Little P.
I knew that was coming. Thanks, Doc. You set me up.
I had a positive one. I'll set up Jesse, and then he's reloaded. Jesse Cramer, how are you, man?
Doing well. All this snow talk. I mean, at this point, my life is in grayscale here in Rochester. I mean, haven't seen the blue sky for weeks. You can see behind me. Look at that. Do you see any color back there?
No.
Nothing.
No, but it is this nice winter landscape, this winter wonderland, which I think ends in June in Rochester, New York. Isn't that about right?
It'll schmelt by June.
Yeah.
That's what they say. It's an old Rochester adverb, proverb, one of those, metaphor, aphorism.
All the above. Jesse, you would agree with me on this one because I totally agree with what Paula said about the bright colors. But I also, man, after the holiday season, I'm okay with taking down the Christmas trees. That represents a specific day. But why do we take down all those pretty lights? Like that? That's the one that gets me. We should leave the lights up and just call them winter lights.
Joe, you should meet the guy in my neighborhood who, by far, he had the most lights. I don't want to criticize him here on such a popular show because he's probably tuning in, but he could be a little more selective in what he chooses to put up in his yard. Last year, it took him till after Easter to bring them all down. It was St. Patrick's Day, and there was still a nativity scene out there.
You live next to Clark Griswold.
Hey, different strokes for different folks. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, I'm super excited that all three of you are here today to kick off quote normal episode of the Stacky Benjamin Show. You know what? Today I got inspired when I was reading our friend Jim Wang's piece on index fund concentration. Jim writes at Apex Money. Go to apexmoney.com. He also curates a lot of good stuff there, but he shares his fantastic thinking there as well. And Jim wrote this. He wrote, I love investing with index funds, low cost, low thinking, diversified, safe. What scares me a little is that the top 10 holdings account for like 40% of the index, and it's mostly technology. I still invest in index funds, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The challenge with this realization is that there's no alternative. Many actively managed funds hold exactly the same assets. Pot, kettle, black, active funds in the index concentration argument from Morningstar. This is a quote. Indexing critics claim, among other things, the index funds are the tail wagging the dog. The way they tell it, investors pour money into index funds. The funds shovel those dollars into their top holdings, and the portfolio gets ever more concentrated. This, they say, makes index funds a kind of perpetual motion machine, distorting the value of its stock holdings. Of course, then, active funds doing exactly the same thing. I know this is not something that the average person worries about, but this is something the average stacker worries about, the average afforder, the average best interester, the average earned investor worries about. Like, this is stuff our audience worries about, which got me thinking, this is kind of like the boogeyman, isn't it? We'll talk about why I think that this isn't the huge deal a lot of people think that it is. But what are some of these other deals, these things that we over worry about, these things hiding, going maybe bump in the night? We're going to go into all those in just a moment. But first, we have some sponsors that make sure this show's free so that you don't have to pay for it. All this goodness that's about to come with Paula, Jesse, and Jordan. But before that, let's hear from them. And then we're going to talk about what fears do our money nerd friends have and how do we fight those? Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. They're for those all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken, the times you're deep in your flow and can't be interrupted by an auto update. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to you. Built with long-lasting batteries so you're not scrambling for an outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/DellPCs. Built for you. In business, there is no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. And when you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on, because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else, your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS Ground Advantage. We mean business. All right, let's start this off with the actual topic here of index fund concentration. Paula, does this idea that, these top 10 holdings of the Magnificent Seven, as we call them now, that these dominate the index fund, and we're kind of going to go the way 7 companies go?
It is true. I mean, the premise of the question is definitely true. The Magnificent Seven represent a major portion of a total stock market index or an S&P 500 index. But what people often miss is that throughout history, a handful of companies have dominated the overall market. So back in the day, it was railroad stocks, right? It was oil and gas stocks. In the days of Standard Oil and John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, like this was an issue then too. And so the entire idea behind buying a major index fund is to make sure that by virtue of not picking and choosing, you do have exposure to those 7 prior to when they become so big so that you can be part of that growth.
Jesse, same question. Do you worry about this?
I've written about it before and certainly thought about it a lot. And there's that whole idea, right, of the tail wagging the dog. I mean, something that maybe stackers are aware of is back when index funds were initially thought of, at that time, any sort of mutual fund out there was actively managed. And because it was just everything out there was this way, you could think of it as this giant ocean liner of actively managed funds kind of cruising through the ocean, determining the prices of stocks. Everybody out there, through their trading activity, was determining the prices of stocks. And then you have this little index fund, this little dinghy, that all it's doing is kind of tying a rope behind the ocean liner and saying, whatever you say the prices are, fine, those are the prices. We're just going to follow your lead and buy in at those prices. And so if that's the metaphor you choose to think about it as, well, it's not a giant active cruise liner and a really small index dinghy. Now, actually, the index dinghy is considerably bigger than the cruise liner. And so does the metaphor kind of break apart? It's interesting. If you think about it through that lens, are some concerns. I saw Nick Majuli just wrote this week about the index fund bubble. A lot of ink has been spilled on the topic. I think it's a really cool topic. I'm not personally too concerned, simply because prices are determined by trading volume, not necessarily by is it held passively or held actively. But we'll see what the future holds. I mean, what if the whole stock market ends up being indexed? How will that work?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, what ends up happening then is we're all buying these same, let's say it's not even 7, let's say it's these 500 companies. What happens to a company when they drop out of the S&P 500? I mean, holy cow, the amount your stock will drop just because of the indexification of the world could be gloom and doom for companies that are right on the fringe. How do you fight this concentration? I mean, if you know what's happening and you know that my index might be almost half 7, 8, 10 companies, how do you fight it?
I mean, there are a few ways to do it. One is you can accept that there is a little overconcentration. And if you look at the S&P 500 over decades and decades and decades, it's always been somewhat overconcentrated, yet the returns have continuously been good. So you can accept the fact that it is self-cleansing, that it will change based on what's happening and that you'll never go down to zero. So one is acceptance. The other thing is to realize that even equities are just one of many asset allocations, right? So you can have equities, you can have your bond allocation, you can have your cash allocation. Some people really like to do real estate, whether that's REITs or whether they own real estate. Some people are into things like crypto and gold. I personally am not, but it's another way also to diversify. So I think there's some other things you can do. There is obviously a group of people who believe in adding some of the things that are missing from the S&P 500, right? So can we add some small cap value? So that's a way in which you can add some other indexes. Could you add basically a variety of different indexes to cover what the S&P doesn't? And that certainly is a way you could go if you're interested.
Yeah, it was my first thought, Paula, was why would we just have one index? You know, I mean, you don't even have to get fancy with Bitcoin and real estate. You could just have 3 or 4 indexes.
Yeah, I mean, a small cap allocation is a great way to kind of offset a little bit of the risk. The key is, and you could spend eternity debating this question, is what percentage of your portfolio should you put in a total market index and what percentage should you put in a small cap allocation? But having some kind of a small cap allocation in there, that can solve a lot of this concern if you do have this concern.
There's something else that Doc G said, Jesse, that I think a lot of people don't know about or don't think enough about. And he called it self-cleansing, right? That the index is self-cleansing. And I think this is a big thing. Do you mind explaining how the index is self-cleansing to our stackers out there? Because for me, this gives me a lot of comfort that I don't have to pay attention to the fact that this is only 7 stocks.
Well, yeah, I think what Doc G's referring to there, and maybe as an example, we can use an S&P 500 index fund, which is to say that when you have an underperforming company inside the S&P 500, and maybe as an S&P 500 index fund owner, maybe it doesn't appeal to you that you own this underperforming company inside of the index. Well, eventually, if the company continues to underperform, that company is going to drop out of the S&P 500, drop out of the index, and it will be replaced by another company that ostensibly is doing much better. And so that over time, all you have to do is look at the constituent companies of the S&P 500 over the last 50 years. And what you'll realize is that the companies that haven't performed well have eventually dropped out of the index. And the companies that started small and are doing really, really well eventually join the index. And as the owner of the index, you own all the right companies, maybe not all the time, but enough of the time so that your returns have ended up being pretty good.
And I think, Paula, this was even part of your original point that people that are new to this might not realize. That if it during, you went back to John D. Rockefeller, for goodness sakes, but if it was Standard Oil back in the day, then it was General Electric and AT&T, and, you didn't have to trade anything. The index just kept up.
Exactly. So naturally, that's sort of the point of the index is naturally over time, as the winners start to weaken in their position. I mean, General Electric is a great example. It still exists. It's not the Dutch East India Company. Like it still is in business, but it just occupies a smaller position of the overall index. And so naturally over time, as these things happen, the index automatically adjusts.
There's a fear that a lot of our money nerd fans have that I've seen on the internet that I'd like to also address. And that's the fear that if I buy an index fund, that these people managing the index fund on Wall Street are idiots and we can beat the idiots. That's not the reason why. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is not the reason why these people lose. If you've ever met people on Wall Street, they don't get Wall Street jobs because they're morons. The way they're paid, though, has a lot to do with why they lose and the amount of money. They're managing millions and sometimes billions of dollars. And their ability to get in and out of a position quickly is zero. Second, because of this thing called a prospectus, which is meant to protect you, if Paula runs a fund company, as an example, she is told that she has to buy this one asset class and that's it. And then her performance is based on how she does relative to the S&P 500. So through defensive mechanisms, AKA I want to keep my job, they try to stay as close as they can to the S&P. Making very few bets. So I hear often this fear that anybody can beat the idiots, and it's been proven. Well, it's not because they're morons. It's because of how they're paid. Paula, what's your cat doing back there?
My cat is about to attack my turtle. So that's my turtle tank. That's the cat sniffing the turtle tank.
Every money nerd watching this video on YouTube with us is worried about that.
Now the cat has lost interest in the turtle and is simply... Oh, and now she's showing us her butt.
There it is.
That's about right.
Better the cat than Doug. So we're good to go there. Doc, what's another thing you find people in your earn and invest community really worry about that the average person doesn't worry about?
So what I hear, and I'm not sure if this is something that the average person doesn't worry about, but what I hear over and over again is they come into money somehow, right? They get a bonus, maybe they get an inheritance, something good happens and they have a bunch of money. And it's the fear that they're going to put the money in the market and the market's going to drop the next day. So they might buy into indexes. They might be like, okay, I'm ready. I like this idea of having money in equities, but I'm still going to kind of wait because things are running a little rich, right? That's what they say. It's running a little rich. Let's wait till the prices go down a little so that I can put my money in. And as we all know, no one can predict what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. And therefore, you're just basically keeping your money out of the market. And the longer you keep your money out of the market, the more likely in the long term you're going to lose. So I see that one quite a bit as I agree with this idea. I even know that I want to put my money in S&P 500 index, but things are running so high today, I better hold off.
We even see it, Jesse, with like 401k rollovers, right? Well, I don't know if this is a good time to roll over my 401k to an IRA because the market's high right now. And who knows, are the market's sinking, or the market's going up, or the market, all these reasons.
100%. To back up what both of you guys just said, a very, I think it was a recent episode, I won't plug myself, but I had an entire episode of my podcast inspired by a woman, a listener who reached out in August saying, hey, this is August of 2024. Hey, is now the right time to invest? And I listed out all the things that Doc G just said about like, hey, we can't be sure if now is the right time to invest or not. She didn't heed the advice. And then in December, she reached back out and said, oh, I guess you were right. Well, on that front, I'll say to listeners, there's a great quote to keep in mind, which is that market returns are written in pencil, not pen. So my advice to her is right so far. For all we know, the market might drop 20% in a month, and then she can invest, and it would have been the smart thing to do. But to go back to what Jordan said, all else being equal, the odds are she should have invested as soon as possible. History bears that out over and over again. We can look at little things like the PE ratio, the CAPE ratio, the cyclically adjusted PE. And maybe we can try to make some arguments that when the CAPE ratio is high, when prices of stocks are high relative to their earnings, future returns tend to be a little bit lower. There's some truth there, but it still doesn't mean that just because you have a high PE ratio that you should avoid investing today. Is definitely a common thread that I think we all see in a lot of the DIY investor community.
What's your best strategy then? It sounds like it's just invest it now, get in.
Well, it is, or at the very least, something that I think is a really good middle ground is to say, okay, let's put together a plan that over the next 12 months, you're going to get this money in the market. My vote, Mr. Person I'm talking to, would be to put it all in today. And I think because of that, why don't you put a large chunk of it, put a third of it in today, put half of it in today, and then the remainder, let's put in an equal amount every month over the next 12 months, something like that. You know, it's not going to be ideal, right? You know, in retrospect, you're going to look backward and the ideal scenario will have revealed itself. You don't know when the ideal time to commit is. And so if you want to hedge your bets, fine. Put in a little bit now, spread the rest over the remaining 12 months. But either way, you can dollar cost average that way, and at least your money will get in the market eventually.
Paul, anything you'd add to that or say differently to somebody who has that fear?
I would say time in the market, just to kind of piggyback off of it, but say it in a different way. Time in the market is more important than timing the market. And as you know, Jesse mentioned Nick Majuli earlier, his book is titled Just Keep Buying. And so I think if you kind of hold both of those ideas in your head, time in the market is more important than timing. And your job is to just keep buying. Like that's all you do. Just shovel money in and don't even pay attention to any of the rest of it. If you do that consistently over time, you'll be good. With a good asset allocation, you'll be good.
I would add on my end too, if it's because Doc, you gave us the example of somebody that has inheritance, right? So this is new money to you. If it's new money to you, I like Jesse. I like your idea of the dollar cost averaging in because we don't know. And even though the market goes up roughly 70% of the time over long periods of time, we don't know that that's going to be tomorrow. So if you're worried about it, then let's go ahead and go a little slower. The one that frustrates me is when somebody's doing the 401k rollover thing, because that money was already invested. So when they're like, okay, if I move it out, do I move it all back in right away? Well, yes, it was already invested. It was just invested worse than the way you're going to invest. So you're really on the same swing. You know, when you were a kid and you were on the swings, I don't know about you, but when I was on the swings, I was trying to swing higher than everybody else, right? See if you could go all the way around. So if we got one swing that's going to go higher, why wouldn't I do that now? Like move to the better swing. If I think the IRA is a better swing than the swing that's not as good in my 401k, I need to just stay on the swing. I don't know if that analogy even makes sense. Should I talk more about swinging?
just keep swinging, Joe. Just keep swinging.
Yeah,
Tell me another engineering joke.
when I was a kid, people thought I was such a swinger. It was so incredible. Doc, how do you answer this? You brought up the question.
So I'm a big fan of investing right away. I mean, dollar cost averaging is fun, but you might end up dollar cost averaging, and then the market might drop 50% the next day on the last day of your dollar cost averaging. So I think you can slice it anyway. I do love Jesse's idea. If you're anxious, dollar cost average. If you want somewhere in between, put 50% in and dollar cost average the rest. But as long as you're getting it in the market, you're winning. It's the people who keep holding and waiting and then never put it in that are the ones who end up losing long term.
Yeah, because you're betting against the market. And this is where just showing somebody that Ibbotson chart, right? The chart of the market over long periods of time. If you don't know what an Ibbotson chart is, we'll have one in our show notes page at Stacking Benjamins. But regardless of the CAPE ratio or whatever, Jesse, when you're talking about is now the time and timing the market, all you got to do is take a look at an Ibbotson chart and go, would I rather play that game or rather know that 30 years from now when I want this money, it's going to be a lot higher? Because that's what Ibbotson chart shows you immediately. Historically through all long periods of time. Paula, give us one more before we break for our amazing trivia competition kickoff.
One more fear, one more worry?
Fear. What's a fear that our communities have?
I think a lot of people worry about black swan events, those low probability, high magnitude events. And rightfully so, because they are very high magnitude if they were to come to fruition. There can be sometimes people who over worry about black swan events, meaning they overestimate the probability of those.
So is that how you mitigate that, is by telling the audience that the probability is not high? But we do know it is going to happen again. It will happen at some point.
Well, yeah. And I'm not just talking about market-based black swan events. I'm talking about any type of life black swan event, right? I think
like fires where I live.
Exactly, which unfortunately many, many people are dealing with right now. Natural disasters, it could be getting run over by a truck, it could be, Doc has something to say about that.
No, not running over a truck, but go ahead, finish your thought and I'll jump in.
I was like, he's got a story there. But, any type of black swan event like that, whether it's something in your health or something in your community or something in the markets, I think people rightfully should protect themselves from the risk of ruin, but sometimes can be so worried about these that they overfocus on the threat.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in, it's interesting because we worry so much about the black swan events and then we don't pay attention to what I call white swan events, which are devastating but highly often probable and likely events. So like getting a divorce is a white swan event that people don't want to do the prenup, they don't want to do the postnup. And yet, unlike a black swan event, lots and lots of people get divorced. So I love talking about the black swan events because I think it also shows how we actually don't mitigate against the obvious stuff. Good disability insurance, a really strong emergency fund, thinking about divorce. I mean, all the things, thinking about, a health crisis, like all these things that most likely will happen to either us or a loved one. We tend to be horrible at planning for those.
Well, which is interesting, Jesse, because you work in a financial planning office. I mean, one of my favorite things to do when I was a financial planner, these what if scenarios, right? Because I just love, to Doc's point, I love this idea of what if something bad happens and we just start listing all these things and come up with these strategies. It's actually, in a little bit morbid way, kind of fun to do.
I never could have guessed that I would drop my phone into the bathtub last night. Never saw it coming. Never in a million years. Total black swan out of nowhere. At first, I thought a meteor might have come down into the tub. That I could plan for. But the fact that it was my phone falling out of my sweatpants pocket, never saw it coming. No, both really good points. And yeah, to your question, Joe, it is. It's really fun. Sometimes I worry that people view it as like they'll view you as a pessimist. Like you're a Debbie Downer. You're a gray sky Rochester non-color wearing pessimist,
non-lime green wearing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a true funny story. One of my older brothers was doing I forget exactly what he's doing. And my dad was kind of going through the whole, like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about this? And my brother called him out on it and was like, Dad, all you ever do is think about the worst cases. So my dad paused and kind of tilted his hand and looked at him and just goes, okay, how about this for a productive question? What if everything works out and it's just the best thing possible? Almost like, of course. Well, we don't need to apply any critical thought to that answer. What a wonderful world. The critical thought has to be applied to these negative what if questions. And yeah, going back to your question, Joe, I usually try to couch it in like, hey, this is a hard part of the job. It's not always easy conversations, but have you thought about estate planning? What if, have you thought about your parents dying? What's going to happen in that situation? Have you thought about it? And I try to empathize with people, but it's certainly important, isn't it?
It is so important. And we have one of our favorite episodes, most watched episodes and listened to episodes every year, is when we talk about fire safety, which, Doug, it's so wild to me that a fire safety episode where we do the fire drill. And I've had so many parents reach out to me going, we did that with our family afterwards. People aren't even parents going, I love the idea because I remember doing that when I was in school. Why don't do a fire drill now? And OG calls that in his financial planning practice. He calls it a fire drill. Paula?
Oh, I was going to say, I have a couple of friends who are firefighters for the Austin Fire Department. They came to visit. And one of my friends was like, just casually, he was like, all right, where's your nearest emergency exit? And I'm like, I don't know. And he was
He's like, wrong answer.
Yeah. And he was like, you don't know? Shocked. He was like, well, because I live on the 20th floor of my apartment building.
Yeah.
He was like, well, if something happens, what's the nearest stairwell? And I'm like, I don't know. Never thought about it.
Wow.
Paula, one question.
Yeah.
Did you become friends with this firefighter before or after you bought the calendar?
Inquiring minds want to know.
No comment.
Came with the calendar.
Oh, nice. Bought the deluxe package.
But immediately, Paula, I'm sure you went and found out where that stairwell was.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. This idea of what if it happens? Because, Jesse, to your dad's point, it is so much better. I love planning for the worst. And then every time the best happens, I'm grateful. It's a super place to be. Mm-hmm. We're going to hear Jesse's amazing addition to this conversation and another fear that people have after our break. If you're brand new to the Stacking Benjamins community on these, quote, normal episodes, we have a year-long trivia competition, which we are starting today. And I wanted to start it today because our returning champion isn't here. And we might be able to get off with somebody else leading the way. But I don't know, because defending his honor today, Doc G from our brother podcast, Earn and Invest, is playing for OG. He's no longer playing for Mom. We're going to just make it official, Jesse, no matter what you say. Frequent contributor Jesse Cramer is playing no longer for Mom. She's got no interest in this. He's playing on Team Jesse now. So we'll call it Jesse and Friends.
Time to start trying.
And then Paula Pant in the Afford Anything community, who I know through the emails, a lot of the Afford Anything community behind Paula Pant, and hoping, well, just, hoping. I'm not sure what they're hoping for, Paula. But they're just
2025 could be the year.
It very well might be. So we run this all year long, and the winner gets a dollar store trophy with an erasable front, which OG just popped up behind him on a recent episode.
He used permanent Sharpie marker on the erasable. Maybe an embossing tool.
That beautiful dollar store trophy. But for every answer, we have to have a question, and Doug furnishes those each week. So, Doug, what's on tap to kick off the 2025 season?
Well, buckle up, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and welcome to the first actual roundtable trivia question of 2025. Do you smell that? Yes, the air is filled with possibility and optimism, and frankly, some unresolved questions like, can Paula Pant finally capture at least second place in this competition? Or can Doc G miss our trivia answer by maybe less than 1 million? And of course, we're all wondering when Jesse Cramer will update his tech skills so he can low-key cheat again and nail 2 questions in a row on the dot, like he may or may not have done back in 2024. Look, I'm not accusing you, Jesse. I'm just wondering out loud in a disapproving tone of voice if it could happen. Jesse Gate's a real thing in Stacking Benjamins country. So let's begin these games by talking about a big, audacious 2025 goal we have here on the show. We're going to help some stacker out there become the next billionaire. It's a worthy goal, right? So here's today's question. After we +1 this invite to the Billionaire Club, how many billionaires will there be in the world? I'll be back with the answer right after I find out if a really successful lingerie store owner would be called a Brazilianaire. There's a term I probably just coined and should patent. TM on that, everybody. TM.
Well, Doug, either that or somebody from Brazil, maybe. Could be that too.
Either way, but which one would you rather think about?
Could be either somebody from Brazil. I would rather talk about. So let's kick this off. We go in reverse order of last year's standings, which means that Doc G is going to go first. Jesse will go second. Paula gets to go third. Number of billionaires plus our new billionaire. So number of billionaires right now plus one more equals what number?
Is that me? Am I up?
You are up.
Put me in, coach. All right. So I think in the US, we're in the hundreds, right? 400 or 500, I thought, something like that. And so now you're asking the world. I'm going to say 3,542.
3,542. Very specific to kick off the year.
I wanted something specific. No reason.
Yes. Jesse, I love Jesse Gate, by the way. Very, very big. Like people in New England and what was that called? Football Gate or
Inflate
Gate or
Deflate Gate.
Inflate Gate.
Deflate
Yes.
Gate.
Yeah.
Yes. As part of Bill's Nation, Jesse, I'm sure you know Inflate Gate.
Oh, yeah. Huge Tom Brady fans here. Well, actually, there's an episode last year where I believe I quoted the number of U.S. billionaires. And Doc G, I think you were pretty darn close to on the money. If I expand it out to the globe, though, I'm going to go a little lower than the Doc. And I'm going to say 1,071. 1071 is my guess. Neighbor Doug, book it.
He said,
Look at Dano. Yeah.
That's what it says right here on Google. Is 1,071. All right, Paula, you got one. Paula, you've got 1,071. Jordan has 3,542.
Well, when I heard the question, my first thought was 1,000 billionaires, only because I kind of like the contrasting orders of magnitude. And so, for the case of capturing the under, I will go 1070.
What could go wrong?
1,070.
All right, we've got 3,542 from Jordan. Jesse next up with 1,071. Paula takes him out at the knees with 1,070. Is it Paula Pant's year? Is Jesse on the nose? Is Doc G within a million? We're going to find out in just a second.
I am.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada? Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in houseplants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
Jordan, you opened this up with a guess of 3,542. Both Jesse and Paula said nay. They think it's fewer. What do you say?
I say that I'm going to be closer than usual, so I call that a win no matter what.
Do you want to do the speech right now? Just get it out of the way.
Pretty much I've won already, regardless of who really wins. So we're good here.
It's impossible to be off by 1 million. It would be fun though if it was 3,540.
Yes, that would be really ironic. Yes.
And then Jesse, 1,071 sounded like a nice guess until Paula got there.
Yeah, it's okay. That's okay. I didn't want to divulge too much of my clandestine information before. For some reason, the number of like 460 is sticking out to me for U.S.-based billionaires. And I got to think there's more U.S.-based billionaires than other countries. But like all other countries combined? No, probably not. So I don't know. Just 1,071. I don't know. Hoping it's a little bit higher than that.
Just the voice in your head, Jesse. I love this self-talk. Like back and forth. It is an amazing thing to watch. Paula, 1,070.
If it's true that there's maybe somewhere around 400, 500 US-based billionaires, I would have to believe that the US would have approximately half of the world's billionaires. So, yeah, I'm feeling good about being close to the 1,000 mark.
Well, who knows? I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. Doug knows. Of course, Doug knows. Doug, who's taking home the first win of 2025?
Hey there, stackers. I'm billionaire maker and Brazilianaire believer, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Jesse Cramer politely cautioned me during the break not to talk too much about Jesse Gate 24. He said if I didn't shut up about it, he'd tell everyone that I was the guy behind the Doug coin debacle. I tried to tell him it had nothing to do with that except lending my perfectly proportioned face to the coin. He seemed to understand, but then again, he never really put the baseball bat down, so tensions are still a bit escalated here in the basement. Well, Jesse, I'm surprised you didn't totally nail today's trivia question, which was, how many billionaires are in the world after we +1 that number? Well, I'll tell you this. The number is 1,712 more than Paula guessed, 1,711 more than you guessed, and just 760 less than Doc G guessed.
No. Oh my God, no.
Because the correct answer is 2,781 plus 1.
Yeah, baby.
Our stacker. And this absolutely sucks because
this is horrible. OG ends up ahead anyway.
This puts OG up by 1. It is a total catastrophe.
We tried to plan this out to have Doc G play for OG, so it wouldn't happen.
What a
This
nightmare.
is my year, baby. This is my year.
And it bites us in the ass. The guy goes to the Caymans, and we still can't. Oh, man.
So 2,781 billionaires in the world, and by the end of 25, we'll have one more because we're going to get a stacker there, but that's your answer.
I volunteer to be the one you get there.
It probably will be you. I mean, all those book sales.
New book.
All those book sales. It's going to make it at least 1 million.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, 1 billion.
You know how many billionaires there are out there writing books?
Yes, so many.
A couple more than there are podcasters. All right, let's dive into the second half of this shindig, as Mom says. Jesse, what's another thing that we worry about as Uber nerds that maybe we can help people calm down about a little bit?
Question for you. Does it have to be an Uber nerd concern, or can it just be a concern that I see out there? Okay.
Well, I like the one that Doc said. Yeah, the one that Doc said is Uber nerds share that. But, my mom recently asked that. She's like, what if I take this money and put it in the market? It goes down right away.
Yeah. I think another one that might carve out some new territory here for us today is just the fear of scams and frauds in general, or just this idea. I hear this a lot where it's like, the stock market is rigged. The stock market's a scam. Other people are pulling the strings. They're just, they're waiting for a whole bunch of suckers like me to put my money in, and then they're going to pull the rug out from under me and take everything away. Granted, there have been investments in the past, unregulated investments, Ponzi schemes, things like that, truly fraudulent schemes that people have heard about or are aware of. Bernie Madoff certainly did no favors for us, did he? But I think many people out there, they confuse the volatile nature of the stock market or just the volatile nature of investments in general, which is a feature, not a bug. And instead, they come to the conclusion that the market itself must be a rigged game.
Well, let's dive into that. I mean, Jordan, 2 points. Movies like The Wolf of Wall Street don't calm anybody's fears, right? The whole Jordan Belfort thing. And then, when you look at the whole Reddit thing around GameStop, right? And all of the people going, look at what they did. There's more shares that are being like, how are they engineering this so the big guys still win while the rest of us lose? Like, there's a lot of people thinking exactly what Jesse's talking about.
So my take on this, and this is a big reason why I think people also like index funds, is what we're really talking about here, I think, is efficiency, right? So the idea of efficiency is what's happening in the market, are the changes we're seeing accurate of what's really happening, or are they a momentary glitch? Are we seeing low prices because, for instance, the stocks are valued low? Are we seeing low prices because it's a glitch, it's inefficient, and there's knowledge out there that we don't have, and eventually we could get that knowledge and realize that that's a low price and we should get in or get out depending on that issue? The bigger the market, the more efficient it is, the more likely that the general knowledge out there is the correct knowledge. So it is true when you're talking about investing in something which very few people invest in, there's a lot more room for inefficiency. Maybe you just don't have all the knowledge. Maybe you don't know what's going on. But when we're talking about these bigger markets like index funds and even equities in general, it's such a big market. It tends to be efficient. In other words, the market tends to long-term move in the direction that it should, that's reflective of the values of the companies that are being represented. And so I guess I would tell someone who's worried that there's a hoax going on is the less investors you have in something, the more likelihood there could be a hoax going on. Whereas these really big markets tend to be really efficient, meaning that the price long-term actually matches the value. Does that make sense?
It does. It does make sense. Paula, did you worry about the GameStop thing and all the Reddit talk that there was something nefarious going on under the hood there involving Robinhood and some of these big hedge funds?
Well, there was that controversy, and I'm forgetting the details right now, but there was some controversy around Robinhood would allow you to buy, but it wouldn't allow you to sell. Or something to that effect. So I remember.
And also the short float being bigger than it should be.
Right. But that was that particular event was so in the headlines and so closely monitored. I remember it was the one time that the AOC and Ted Cruz actually agreed on something, which was both were like, hey, we need to look into Robinhood. That particular event was so closely monitored by not just the general public, but by elected leaders and by regulators. And there were so many layers of protection there that I wasn't, was a little fired up on social media about it, but I wasn't actually like worried in any deep way. I think where we have greater risk is in markets that have less regulations, such as cryptocurrency.
Jesse, do you worry about something systemic, that there's a bigger risk than just this maybe one-time thing or just Robinhood, that there's, the people on Wall Street playing by different rules than you and I? Well, let's go to the next level. How about this? How about the people in Congress who have these phenomenal returns in their portfolios?
Yeah, so that goes back, and Doc G used the word efficiency, and my personal definition or understanding might just be a semantic difference from what Doc G was saying, but is the market's price reflective of all publicly available information? Or is there some sort of hidden information reflected in the price? And what that really means is, do some investors know more than me? Do they know secrets about a company that the company hasn't published yet? Does that mean that I'm not playing with a full deck? And of course, I'm not going to buy the stock at the correct price or at the truly reflective price. That's how I think of efficiency. It's a function of the information that's out there and whether it's publicly or privately available. And what you're referring to there, Joe, is if I'm in Congress or if I'm a senator and I just sat through a top secret meeting that I have security clearance for, or just a meeting that I'm privileged to and other people aren't, and I know that some contract is going to company XYZ, or I know that some tax law is going to start affecting company ABC. Well, if I go out and I trade on that information, that sure seems like, if that senator was working inside the corporation, that would be called insider trading. And that is a felony. We have laws against that. But if they're not working for the corporation, but they happen to be sitting in the right meeting on Capitol Hill and they trade on that information. It doesn't seem fair, but yeah, it certainly riles me up if you can't tell.
Well, and I think the big question here is that, a lot of people say that, yeah, okay, that part of the system's rigged truly doesn't affect you. I mean, truly doesn't affect,
100%.
It does affect my ability to keep up with them, but it doesn't affect my ability to participate in the market.
That's true. But I mean, it doesn't make it right.
Not at all.
At the same time, like, it is not justified. And you're right. Like, does it prevent me from investing, or do I let that information affect the way I invest? No, I don't. But it's certainly a problem.
Jesse, you were talking about insider trading as somebody worked at the company. Insider trading is a real thing, and it isn't always illegal. Like, insiders are allowed to trade and they have to publish their trades. Have you ever, Paula, made a trade because you saw some insiders making that trade?
No. In fact, I've never looked at information that insiders have published. Where do you get that? Do you just Google like what?
You can go to CNBC.com, Yahoo Finance, wherever, look at the board of directors, and they are required to publish whether they've been buying or whether they've been selling. And by the way, what's interesting to look at with that is if they're buying or selling, my goodness, you have a whiner in the background there, Paula. We've got, if they're doing it the same number of shares, the same amount of money, maybe once a quarter, I know that's a financial plan in action, right?
Yeah.
But if they're doing it irregularly, it becomes much more interesting, because then I believe there might be something that they know. That was actually the entire reason people have been fans of the show for a while. The only reason I bought Lumen stock was because the new CEO that came in bought a crap load of Lumen stock. And then it turned into the worst company ever. Then it turned out I was brilliant. And now it turns out I'm somewhere in the middle. And if I don't sell soon, I will be dumb again, because it just has continued to go down. But as I've also said, I didn't put much money. I think I put $500 in it. So it wasn't going to be the end of the world for Joe if Lumen goes under. Doc?
Doesn't some of this argument fail to recognize the fact that market beta is kind of free, right? Average market returns are free to anyone who wants them. It's true if you want alpha, right? If you want above market returns, A, you could rig the system, right? With things like insider trading, or B, you could be incredibly lucky, or I guess C, we could say maybe there are a small number of people with a huge amount of skill that will get them alpha. But regardless of all that, to say the whole system is rigged ignores the fact that beta is free, right? You get the S&P 500 index or you get a total market index, and that's it. It's free.
And I do, Jesse. I like that position of, you know what? I feel like a lot of us ask our portfolio to add alpha to our life, and we don't ask that of our career, of our life, of other areas.
Yeah, I think your energy is better spent seeking out, if we're using the alpha and beta terms, it's your energy is better spent seeking out alpha in other arenas. 100% agree. Going back to what you were saying there, Doc G, the whole idea of beta is free. It is. I do have this question, or like thinking back to whether we're talking about market efficiency or the index fund bubble or anything like that, or black swan events. I mean, there are these ideas of just because we have an efficient market and just because beta is free, that isn't the same thing as saying that the price is correct. It just means that the price is reflective of available information. And and that's kind of getting back to Robert Shiller, Irrational Exuberance, or even Warren Buffett, who does say, no, of course the market's not efficient. Look at what I've done and look at what a lot of other people have done. It's just that for you and I to try to think that we have more information to be right more often than the market in general, that I agree with you 100% and say, yeah, just take the market performance, take the beta, and move on to other aspects of your life.
But I even think traders, Jesse, who do this all day long because they know how dangerous it is when you think you have all the information, are experts. The good ones that I've talked to are experts at going, you know what? What's the chance that I don't have all the information? Where the average person who's a stacker, a best interester, or an investor, a forwarder, like all of our communities, I think are, from the people that I've talked to, less likely when you feel this good feeling about something to go, there's got to be information I don't have. Like the best traders do that. We talked to a guy named Jack Schwager who profiles these amazing investors who beat the market over and over and over and over. And I love Jack's quote, which was, The market is not efficient. To your point, Jesse, he goes, but for 99.9% of us, we should pretend it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
We should think like it is, because it's a hell of a lot of work to go the other way. And you don't want to, the juice isn't going to be worth the squeeze when there's so many other things that we might be able to do. Paula, bring this home. Give us one more. How about that?
One more fear or worry? Actually,
one more fear.
Can I also just share my thought as you guys have been talking about the market? Is
Yes.
that quote about how in the short term the market is a voting machine and in the long term it's a weighing machine.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I forget who, it might have been Charlie Munger or somebody, but that was what was going through my mind as I was listening to.
It sounds like Charlie Munger because it goes right along with that Warren Buffett quote about Mr. Market.
Right.
Mr. Market from day to day doesn't know what he thinks. One day he thinks it's overvalued. Next day he thinks it's undervalued. But over the long term, Mr. Market's right on.
Right.
I think it's Ben Graham, The Intelligent Investor. It's from that book. Both Mr. Market and that quote are Grahamisms.
Well, there you go. Paul and I got the leaves. Jesse goes to the root.
Nice.
Right on the same family tree. Yeah. Paula, what's one more fear?
I think overly obsessing about asset allocation. And actually, to go back to the beginning of this conversation, particularly in the spirit of people now kind of distrusting an S&P 500 or a total stock market index, one of the outcomes that can come from that is just getting so granular and so obsessive about asset allocation that it starts missing the forest for the trees. And, and basically at that point, you're worrying about the wrong things.
Paula, we can't bring that up right now because I'm trying to get people to worry about asset allocation a little bit. We can worry about it just a little bit. Like I'm speaking to that part of the audience that doesn't think about it at all and thinks it's baloney and you shouldn't do anything about it. Like, come on.
Maybe we come to the Goldilocks scenario, right? Like this porridge is too hot, the porridge is too cold. Oh, this porridge is just right.
But to your point, I mean, between the FIRE community who says don't think about it at all, which drives me crazy, and then the people who like I was helping someone look at their portfolio today and they had like part of their money in a Japan fund. And I was like, why do you have a Japan fund? Because they got this granular asset allocation, that was way too granular. Like why are we not at least opening that up and just being Asia?
Right.
Just, why are we making the bet on one country? Jesse, do you guys see that in the practice that you work in? People over obsessing with asset allocation?
Occasionally. One thing I will say is generally the people who were working with us, they don't. This is probably true of a lot of financial planners where it's like the reason why you're seeking out professional help is because you might not want to really care about your asset allocation all that much. You want to focus on other areas of your life. But when it comes to my podcast audience or my blog readers and who are largely DIYers, that's where I'll get comments in saying, hey, Jesse, I started this portfolio out thinking I'd be 70% stocks, 30% bonds. And you know what happened last year. And I see it drifting. It's closer to 71-29 right now. And I'm growing a little concerned. Right? Or just questions like that. I think we're all probably familiar with questions here similar to that. And that's where, as Paula set the stage, in my head, I was just thinking they're missing the forest for the trees. And as soon as she said that, I was like, yes, that is the perfect thing to say. It truly is missing the bigger picture for the trees. But a lot of people also just say, what is wrong with 100% VTI, 100% stocks for every single part of my life, no matter how old I am or what my goals are? What is wrong with that? And that's also the wrong approach. It just simply is.
Paul, I'm going to meet you halfway on two areas. Number one is somebody just starting out who's worried about asset allocation. That drives me crazy. Like just starting out. Those are the people, Jesse, that need to be doing the VTSAX.
They're like, oh, I've got $1,000 to invest. How do I allocate it?
Right. I want to buy 5 stocks or whatever. And then the second thing is, though, and I'll meet you partway here, I don't think asset allocation, I like that first word, asset picking, the actual thing inside of the asset class, which Markowitz
like
proved,
security selection? Security
selection. Yeah, like Markowitz proved it's the asset class generally that matters far more than picking the specific stock inside of that asset class. So if you are going to worry about something, worrying about, and I find that newbies really worry about what stock to buy. Then I think, Jesse, they graduate to where you are, which is, or Paula, what you're talking about, which is then they graduate to worrying about, am I 30% or 29% in this asset class? Just beautiful.
I also think we kind of get it wrong based on our age too. So I think with young people, the biggest return for them is going to be the money they put in through accumulating wealth through working or their businesses, et cetera. So for someone just beginning, putting money in something like VTSAX makes a lot of sense because honestly, where they're really going to build their wealth is how much money they put in. Now take someone who's in their 40s or 50s and they're starting to think about making less money and decumulating. That's when asset allocation can actually really start changing things. And I think this is a lot of what you, Joe, talk about and Paul Meerman talks about. Long term, when you're talking about decumulation, having the right asset mix could possibly lead to much higher withdrawal rates. And so I think for young people, it's like, dude, make lots of money and just make sure it's in the market. Make sure it's in something decent. But as you get older, then it makes a lot more sense to start really paying attention to those asset allocations if you choose to be someone who's really trying to improve things on the margin. Like there are going to be some people who are lazy like me, and they're going to say, well, I get it, but I'm not interested in that extra, 0.5% or percent. I'm okay with doing less work. But for the people who really are interested and excited in that's really when you want to start looking at things.
I think scientifically you get above $100,000 saved. That's when you should get a little more granular. But we'll leave that for another day. That's another part of the battle that we'll do another day. Maybe on Afford Anything, Paula, where you and I think have that discussion coming up. We're going to get granular.
We do.
Yes. Wait, let's transition to that. Let's find out. That's a good place to leave this discussion. Let's talk about what's going on where you guys are. Paula, kick this off. What's going on Afford Anything?
On the Afford Anything podcast, you join me for a discussion. This is actually kind of a series of discussions that we've been having for a while about asset allocation, about the efficient frontier. If you want to get beyond simply VTSAX and chill, and you want to start asset allocating in something more than just that total stock market index fund or more than just the S&P 500, what should you do? Should you construct a 4-fund portfolio, a 10-fund portfolio? How much effort will it take? How do you determine which funds to buy? Joe, you walk us through all of that. So, and you do so sort of over a series of episodes, and each one kind of keeps getting better and better. So those are all of our recent Q&A episodes.
I'm just trying to troll all those VTSAXers one at a time as much as I possibly can. And that's at the Afford Anything show.
Yes, on the Afford Anything podcast.
Absolutely. And that episode, by the way, that you're talking about specifically, the one where we kind of walk through it, step 1, step 2, step 3, you really want to be on the Afford Anything YouTube channel.
Yes, absolutely.
For that one.
YouTube.com/Afford Anything, because there's charts, there's graphs, where we go all out.
A lot of graphics. We'll go to the best-selling author last.
It's very graphic.
Jesse, what's going on at the Best Interest podcast, man? You've got a big, can we talk about your milestone coming up first?
Yeah. I mean, well, we've got a few interesting, because Doc G's episode came out today. Awesome discussion. But in a couple episodes, we've got episode 100. The big century.
This is so great.
A century of episodes for the Best Interest podcast. It started with, the funny thing is we joke about recording in the basement here. I think my early episodes, I was actually in the basement. It certainly sounded like I was in a basement. I also sounded like I didn't know how to speak the English language. And here we are, 100 episodes later. So it's been a big journey.
Which shows if Jesse can do it, anybody can do it. Actually, to be serious for a second, the average podcast lasts 7 episodes. And so to reach a big number like 100 episodes, and by the way, to see the guest lineup you've had those first 100 episodes has been, it's phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
It is great, man.
Especially the last one.
That's true. That's true. My mom always said I was about 14 times better than average, and here we are today.
Oh, the math humor runs in the family then, Jesse, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Is it a family of engineers? Is that the deal? It
runs deep. My dad was a biology teacher. My mom was an English teacher.
Oh, that's a wild, wow. Meeting of the minds.
Mm-hmm. And I ended up like this. Yeah.
And you ended up on the Stacking Benjamin show. Your parents like, what happened? Doc G, what's going on besides, being on the amazing book tour? What's going on at Earn and Invest?
Well, after winning the first trivia of the year on the Stacking Benjamin show, I was thinking of packing it in and doing nothing for the rest of the year, actually. That was it. I'm done. But if I happen to go forward with the episodes I have planned, yesterday's episode, and I'm saying yesterday because we're recording this, it's going to be in the future, but actually today, Joe and I did a community episode where we talked about a Yahoo Finance Marist poll that they did of 3,000 banked individuals and asked them how satisfied they were with their savings in 2024. You can hear us discuss the results with community member Matt Sly, as well as Josal Seahai and I. We try to do a community episode once a month. This one is coming a little early, but I'm excited to have this conversation. That's on Earn and Invest.
Wait a minute. You still do community episodes?
I still do, once a month, usually the last Thursday of the month. But since I have some rewind episodes coming up, this is the second to the last Thursday of the month this month.
I was in a forum where I read somebody saying that like Doc G used to do those community episodes. I'm like, when did he quit? He never stopped. There hasn't been one in a month. It's a good time. And to give people just a little preview of that, Doc, people generally not feeling it.
Not so happy with their savings. Kind of pessimistic, but I think we gave it a, optimistic spin towards the end.
We did. And how can you not with Matt, who's a great community member of yours and such a nice guy. And that's on Earn and Invest. All right. That's going to do it for today. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody on YouTube. Thank you also to our contributors. Doug is also going to thank our contributors in a moment. And we'll see you guys back on Monday. Doug, what are our big 3 takeaways from today's show?
Well, Joe, first, take some advice from the single nicest and most passive, nonviolent contributor on the show, Jesse Cramer. He told us exactly the right time to invest. I was listening, Jesse, but I was a little distracted. Could you tell us again when the right time is to invest?
Whether you're an alpha or a beta, it's okay to be a little dingy.
Might not have answered the question, but it sure was good.
We'll take it. Second, take this from our resident crazy cat lady, Paula Pant. She said people worry too much about Black Swan events. Paula, I think you're uniquely qualified to tell us how Black Swan events are exactly like a cat's butt. Can you walk us through that again?
Absolutely. Actually, Black Swan events and cats' butts are similar in 3 ways. So both are hard to control, both are totally unpredictable, and both can be incredibly disruptive surprises.
I think you have to end there, Doug. I don't think we can add any more to that.
But I do have a big lesson. What I learned was that if you want to become a Brazilianaire, don't try getting into ladies' lingerie because there are no verified underwear billionaires. However, there are at least 33 billionaires in Brazil. Either way, my new term is a thing, and I just trademarked it. Thanks to Dr. Jordan Grumet for joining us today. You'll find Doc G's Earn and Invest podcast wherever you're listening to us right now. You'll also find Jesse Cramer's Best Interest podcast on whatever platform you're listening to us right now as well. And we're going to include links in our show notes for both shows at stackingbenjamins.com. And finally, let's thank Paula Pant from Afford Anything for joining us today. You'll find her fabulous podcast, Afford Anything.
I think we got to thank Paula's cat. Paula's cat. Paula's
pants. Yeah. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025, and is created by Josal Seahai. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.